Dungeon
48 people. That's 24 million. So of those 40 million people that love immersing and have trouble with it, 40 million people say that immersion is the most important, and they say that it's troubling. This is for you. Mm-hmm. And tonight we're going to talk about to those specific 24 million that think that the rules to promote realism, this is for you. And we're going to talk about weather in Dungeons & Dragons. So, weather. Imagine the way I look at it is, where are you in the world? What's your world? Are you a desert? Are you in the forest? Are you in the mountains? What's the weather? How do you use weather to sort of build a immersive world that your players can move around in? And I would just look up stats. Like, for example, forests, not like jungles, but forests, it rains 20 to 30% of the time. So if you're going to head out into a forest and you want some sort of so your players to be somewhat immersed and help them get into it, maybe relying on some real world logic. It's not always going to be nice out. Maybe you roll your dice when you roll and get set up in the encounters and whatnot. It has a day gone by. Maybe you roll 30% of the time it's supposed to rain, It's supposed to drizzle, and you can go in and look at other things. What about you? Weather in your games that you've played?
Well, I always love to add little bits of weather in there, but I don't like to, unless the environment calls for it, like you're going into a rainforest. I like to have it just sprinkled in there, so I would often think of the extreme cases of weather in this region, or in whatever adventure. Say, I know a game I go back to all the time, Icespire Peak. It's the area starts to get cold around, so extreme weather for that would be blizzard, ice storms, and avalanches and other things. But I love to throw in those elements of the extreme weather because that's what feels like it would throw off your adventure, really bring you into the environment of this environment is fighting you, not some monster.
Oh, yeah. And I think also, like, it doesn't have to be things that, obviously you want your characters to if it rains, things are going to be slippery. You're going to have to roll. There's going to have to be some sort of interaction with it. So don't just say it's raining. That should have an effect on what's happening. If it turns out
it's harder to light torches or something.
Maybe you get exhausted. Maybe it's muddy. Maybe your environment. If there's for whatever reason, you look at your percentages of the time that it rains in the desert, which is probably let's just say it's like 5% of the time it rains there throughout the year, maybe less. I'm not really a big desert guy. I have no idea, but. I will eventually, because of this, know the stats. But maybe what happens when it rains in a desert? There's a flood. It pours. So look into that and really give the players a real world experience in the magical realm. And another way of doing that is how you describe the weather. And wouldn't it be cool if there was a fog that came in, and instead of saying, okay, it's foggy, everyone has a disadvantage on ranged attacks or whatever, or perceptions? Wouldn't it be nice if, and I just copied this, the humid air clings to your skin as a heavy fog rolls in, dampening the sounds of your footsteps, and then hazy, describing it like that, and just look it up. It's easy to do.
Something that you do well when you're DM, and something I've been trying to pick up from you, is describing your senses in that. So if fog rolls in, you're describing how it feels, how it smells, how it tastes. That really brings you into that moment of putting the player exactly where you want to put them.
And me, I love senses. And immersion and senses go hand in hand. So obviously, I was doing some research about the immersion stuff, and it's like cell phones and things at the table and whatnot. That's obvious. But it's what can you do as a dungeon master to increase that sense at the table? Obviously, dim lights and everything like that, but it's like how you talk and the senses of the players. So what you're saying is, Chris, it's raining. How do you feel? Well, how does your character feel?
How does your character get wet while he's standing in the rain?
Right, and your owl character. Well, I'm sure that the owl is not going to have a great time when it's raining.
No, you're like, I'm gonna throw my hood up. My owl's gonna tuck under my coat, and we're gonna be snuggled in around, barely peeking out.
And if you're like quick to think and stuff like that as a DM, the type of race that the person is, the type of, maybe the orc doesn't care that it's raining at all, or doesn't care that it's cold, but an owl creature or a lizard might have a little bit more of like a defect,
a response to that,
right? So weather, I think, is a great tool to use to bring, I guess, increase immersion. What would you say is a good example of that? Like, from, let's say I got Doomhand, like weather-wise. I'm trying to think of one. We had some. we had some weather storms on the water.
On the boat, yeah.
Yeah, so like a tornado, a hurricane comes, big waves crash. Like, how does that affect your thing? Sandstorm in the desert. How does that? Are you guys running away from the storm? Does it create some sort of urgency? All these things add up, and it's just a simple thing of a storm showing up.
A great example. Recently played a game last week that happened to feature weather prominently in the way that the adventure was run, and there was a blizzard. So it was a rescue mission. We're trying to rescue some people, and it's in the frozen north. There's blizzards, there's storms, and as we're trying to go, it's all right. Roll, see what the weather is like today. All right, it's the blizzard's not there, but it's the winds are picking up and it's getting icy. You can't travel as far today. Okay, we have to find a camp.
Right.
So it creates the adventure of we have to adapt to the environment. The environment is part of the adventure as well, and it makes you feel like, okay, what do we do when we get to camp? We have to get firewood so we can build a fire so we can get warm, so we don't freeze to death out here in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and it can also be used. Like, so for your immersion, it can also be used as sort of like to not push or railroad the campaign, but it can sort of, it's getting really, really, the storm is coming in and trees are falling and there's a cave that looks like, from a distance, you don't have the greatest perception because it's hailing and the winds.
As the lightning flashes, you can see.
Yeah.
It goes deeper
and opening, and it looks safe or whatever. That type of thing, and how you describe it. And we'll have another one of these special immersion focused Let's Talk Allure episodes on, I think, details in the way that you describe rooms and stuff.
How to describe
a room when it should be the next topic in 2 weeks. But I mean, weather is
I need that.
Oh yeah, there's tons of stuff. But weather is, and so like a lot of people are going to ask now. Okay, so you've described Spencer and Chris. You've described weather as being a tool that you can use to bring the players in. But how do you do that? Like, how do you, in your game setup? Well, we just talked about it. You can literally Google
do your research for that region.
Yeah, real quickly. And if it's a made-up world, I only play in my made-up world. It's fantastic. But I want to have it be have that logical sense. It's not just going to.
You can also look for just real-world analogs. So if you have a desert area, you're like, all right, let me look up desert stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be on the forefront. It's there to help push it along. So most of your days might be beautiful and sunny, and then you get a couple occasional ones that are stormy or
and then
crazy things can happen.
You can climb up, and it also could be a way a nice, like, instead of saying, weather can be used to randomly give your players items. Well, it's storming out. The last storm, it was really bad in the forest and trees fell, and you guys noticed that there's an adventurer who's trapped and who had passed, and he's got an umbrella. Or like something like
you see something glinting on his hip,
right? Or you're climbing a mountain, there's ice, and it's snowing, and
you see someone frozen in ice.
Yeah. So when you do that, I think that like the players are going to say, okay, so now this dungeon master, and you should tell the players, okay, weather is going to be a rule. It's going to affect you. So if you do have a quest that's like go up to the mountain, and that the mountain has winds, and you're in a windy region or whatever, maybe you guys are going to go shopping for specific items that help you stay to the ground, and that itself is the goal. If the players are like going to purchase and find items that help them with the weather in your game, perfect. You've succeeded.
Yep, absolutely.
And so that's what I had to say about the weather. And I guess
the fact that I know that cold weather clothing in D&D costs 10 gold. I love weather in D&D.
Yeah, weather and immersion go hand in hand. I mean, it's pretty simple, and it's hilarious to see, like, the barbarian who's butt naked because he's got no armor on, raging in a hailstorm, like, but he's immune to bludgeoning damage, or he's resistant to bludgeoning damage, like, that's pretty good. So
Drake's Fantasy.
Yeah, Drake's Fantasy, which I just posted on Instagram. So that's the weather. Immersion. Let's talk lore. Roll high, subscribe. Use weather to help bring your players.
Dungeon Doom Hands. Let's talk lore.
Draw them into the story, into the world.